So in 1979, in the country of Israel, was a man by the name of Dr. David Kogan. Dr. Kogan was a general practitioner and a gynecologist by trade. He had his own practice in which he employed his wife as his assistant. Dr. Kogan had a very busy practice for various reasons. This was due to him not only being good at being a doctor, he was also known to have unscrupulous business practices. For instance, many women secretively visited the doctor in order to have illegal abortions. Dr. Kogan was allegedly known to be affiliated with several known criminals and even killers that took part in several of his money-making schemes. In these cases, he was never convicted of anything other than tax evasion. One particular day, the doctor opened up his practice alone that day. Allegedly, this was due to his wife having intentions on coming in to work to assist him later that day. So in the meantime, he was forced to multitask by answering phones, adding new patients to his schedule, and physically evaluating his current clients for their illnesses or their medical complaints. The office was filled with patients waiting in the waiting room to be seen, so the doctor would call them in one at a time. No one was really paying attention to the coming and goings of each patient because everyone was just annoyed and waiting for their turn to be seen by the doctor. The patients were becoming unsettled because some of them had been waiting several hours by that time, and the doctor all of a sudden stopped coming out of his office. It wasn't until the doctor's wife came into the office was when a gruesome scene was discovered. His wife immediately walked into the doctor's office and gave out a loud, blood-chilling scream, and then the scream of "Someone help me, please," which startled everyone. Several of those waiting patients immediately ran into the office to see what happened, only to find blood splatter everywhere. Let's find out together how a serial killer can create a trail of mayhem and destruction so baffling that no police expert available was able to decipher. This channel is about lesser known serial killers. If you're interested, I upload new content every Tuesday and Thursday. Well, if you're ready, let's get started. Now back to the story. The doctor was found on the floor of his office dead. His head had nearly been completely chopped off, and he was covered in a large pool of his own blood in which he lay in. The police were immediately contacted and responded. The patients that were already in the waiting room were questioned, but because the office was so busy and no one was paying attention, none of them could describe or even remember the last patient that was seen exiting the office. This was the first of many brazen killings done in unique ways that left the authorities completely baffled and the killer on the loose. One evening, a month later, a loving family was the victims and witnesses to meaningless murder, along with severe injuries and emotional trauma. This family, which consisted of a husband, wife, and 2 children, was supposed to be safe and secure in their home, but again, that's relative. They all ate dinner together as a family unit. The husband left to another part of the home, while the wife took the kids into their bedroom. She began the nightly process of tucking them in their beds together. A stranger, who had been trying all of the windows and doors and allegedly found a weak entry point to force his way into the residence. The stranger crept through the house and down the hallway, which led him to the children's bedroom. The mother had just left their room, so the children had become the killer's first target. The stranger stood there and quietly watched the children go into deep sleep. The stranger dug into his own pocket and produced a hand grenade, activated it, and tossed it into the children's bedroom. Seconds later was a large explosion that shook the entire building and startled both parents. The children, both were covered in blood, badly injured, and began screaming in unison for their parents. Both the father and mother heard the cries and sprang into action. The mother followed the husband into the children's bedroom. Waiting in the children's bedroom was the stranger. As soon as the father saw the stranger in their children's room, it stunned him for a moment, where he froze for a second. This was because he didn't know how this intruder got in his children's room. The father became so enraged at this stranger that he charged headfirst towards this man. The stranger pulled out a submachine gun and struck the father multiple times, killing him before he even hit the ground. The killer then immediately took off running to get out of the house, but the wife gets in between the stranger and the exit, so he then shoots her. This allowed the killer to escape. Two next-door neighbors heard the commotion and took off to help. As they ran toward the house, they encountered that same stranger and they attempted to grab him. The stranger then produced a hand grenade and threatened to blow himself up along with the neighbors if they did not release him. Police were notified and arrived, but the attack was nothing that they were used to dealing with. The family had no illegal dealings, no connections, or even motive that would warrant someone attacking them, so the case remained unsolved for the time being. November of the same year, a stranger jumped the fence and entered a monastery as the monk began to enter the confessional booth. The stranger tossed a hand grenade at the booth, destroying the wall and injuring the monk. As the monk lay on the ground bleeding and moaning in pain, the stranger approached. The monk became afraid of the stranger because he approached him not talking and carrying an axe at the same time. The monk then attempted to strike up a conversation with the stranger in hopes that he could build a connection with the stranger and in turn may be able to save his own life. When this didn't seem to work, he reverted to pleading for the stranger to spare his life. That same stranger raised up his axe, looked the monk directly in his face, and struck the monk over his head, killing him instantly. Immediately after, the stranger then fled the location before the police arrived. Again, the authorities had nothing. 3 short years later, the same stranger was captured by the police climbing the monastery's fence again. The stranger was identified as Asher Rabbi. Asher was interviewed by the police and he confessed to a total of 5 murders. One was a priest that he had killed years prior. A psychological evaluation was completed on Asher and he was found to be unfit to stand trial. He stated that he had been receiving messages from God telling him to kill these people. Asher was committed to a psychiatric hospital indefinitely. If you enjoy more stories such as these, click on one of the suggested videos above. God bless and stay safe.